fuck's going on there, Hop Wolves? It's your boy, Arie Lombardozzi. I'm flying solo here for another episode of Howl At the Moon here on Brewtal Podcast. And as always, stoked as fuck to be chatting with some new friends across the pond. Love getting to talk to people not in my own country. It's so sick. I have Ryan and Oliver from the band Sunfall. What's good, guys? How you guys doing?
Doing pretty good.
And I'm ill.
The two polar sides of it.
Exactly.
We'll just say you're ill as in like you're just dope as fuck there, Ollie.
Yeah,
like you're
I'm the illest, you know?
Well, I'm really stoked to be talking to you guys, especially Ollie. I know you're not feeling good, so that makes it even more special for me here.
I appreciate that.
Fuck
That's
yeah.
a man who is committed to his craft over there.
Exactly.
That's all I can
Like
ask
after being
for.
ill.
Well, of course, we're here to talk about your band Sunfall, and I really love the description that you guys sent me over. Just the first line you said, capturing what can only be known as the descent. That's awesome, man. And my first image is like, I'm a big horror fan, so I'm sure that this will come up at one point, especially because we're in spooky season now.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, have you guys ever seen The Descent, the movie?
I know about it. I need to fucking watch it. I need to this Halloween is I need to do a bit of a tidy up because I like horror films, but there's loads that I just haven't seen. I haven't seen the first Halloween still.
Oh.
And I'm I'm really into my old school slashers as well. So the fact that I haven't seen Halloween it's a crime, to be honest.
It happens, man. I mean, there's so many films out there that it's really hard to keep track of. Halloween's my favorite, so I'm gonna have to give you a little bit of reprimands there because I'm always gonna push that one. But The Descent is another good one. So that's that movie is crazy as fuck, and so is the music you guys create. So just that, it's not even a juxtaposition. That image in my head of these underground cave dwellers. And that's what I get. If I was cave diving and heard this type of music down distant in a cave, I'd be like, yeah, this is gonna be weird, and I'm probably not gonna make it out alive.
It's just me and Ollie in the corner, just beating boulders together, just
While I'm throwing up. Just I'll kill you in a second, bro, and scare you and all that. Just let me be sick for a little bit. Just go away in the corner.
Well, I mean, speaking just kind of on the topic of imagery, I just probably 5 minutes before we started recording, just finished up watching the video for Industrial, your latest single. And man, what a super fucking cool and creepy video. To go with the music too, and the thing that really stood out with this singer in particular, but just the music that you guys are creating, is there is such a unique formula to what's going on. It's just not a cookie cutter, verse chorus bridge. We're all about journeys here on Brewtal. We love having the musical experience and just letting it go. I don't know where it's going half the time, but I'm here for it. So can you guys give me maybe a little bit of insight as to the just the single Industrial, the video, and how the two relate? Because the imagery when everyone watches it is quite, it's very interesting, but I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, musically, it's cool that you mentioned it being a journey. Because when I approach songwriting, that's what I have in mind, and not necessarily the conventions of music, verse, chorus. For me, it's I just go with a feeling about how things should go.
Yeah.
And then it accidentally turns up how it is, down to even just the small details, because I might do something in another demo or something, and Ryan might point out, it's oh, you've done this musical thing. I can't remember what track it was, Ryan. Where he's metric modulation, and you corrected it.
Okay.
Oh, that was Hoxton. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't even know I'd done that, right? I just went by a feeling. And I approach songwriting as well in terms of like, I'm very visual in my head. I can see scenery. I can see a story in my head, and I just like narrate that with music.
Okay.
That's how I approach it with the video and so on. So it's, for this one, it's very much a match made in heaven type thing, this song, because Sam wrote the lyrics essentially about political corruption everywhere, and how it's resulting in the fabric of society being torn apart and people turning against each other. There's more political polarization than there's ever been.
Right.
And there's no togetherness. So he wrote it about that, and how the video came about was like back in 2017. There's this animator called Brewtal, and he put out like all the shots. Like he animated everything like into individual shots.
Yeah.
And he put everything out under a Creative Commons license. And he left the notes literally saying like, I don't care what you do for it, be it personal or commercial.
Okay.
Just do whatever the fuck with these shots that you want to do. And I downloaded them, and I came across them again on my PC like years later. I was like, oh, let's just see how I can edit these shots together with this song. And it turned out perfectly. And what the animation as well depicted fits the lyrics so well.
Yeah.
Because they're babies fighting each other, like it shows the immaturity of a lot of things, the lack of adult conversation going on to bring things to a peaceful conclusion and logical conclusion, but it brings in the greed side of things as well, that they're covered in gold, it's raining money. It's just like,
this is very insightful. I didn't think about any of this. When I watched the music video for the first time, I was like, oh, funny fat babies punching each other, funny. And I was like, this is a goofy ass music video. But then I was like, this is actually really dope. It's like super unique. But like, I find it very funny. I've never like noticed any of those parallels really before just now.
Well, yeah, those parallels are there. And it's just crazy to me that like, it was just meant to be.
Yeah.
I was like, it was by chance I was going through my computer and happened to come across those shots I downloaded years ago.
That's so cool, man.
It's just like, it was just meant to be.
A couple episodes ago, we were talking about one of the songs from a band called Carcosa, if you guys are familiar with them.
I know about Carcosa, yeah.
So one of the things that they had mentioned in the bio that they sent over is that time is a flat circle. So like everything kind of comes around in a sense. And like that's what that makes me think of, is just, you have something right now that might not be applicable to what you're doing, but then 5 years later you have something that fits perfectly. So it's just kind of cool to see those things fall into place. And yeah, I mean it fits perfectly. And so you put everything together. It was just, okay, that's sick, man. It
was just a folder of like hundreds, or not hundreds, but like just individual few second long animations. So I had to like fit it together, just like make some sort of narrative or something out of it, and just like see what shots fit that specific section of music. A lot of the shots are like reused. I've just had to zoom in on some of them, reverse them around, just to make them look like different shots.
Crop them.
But fair play to Brewtal as well for like putting those shots out for free for people to do whatever with, for personal or commercial use, because it's like,
he's a massive animator. I don't know if like who Brewtal crap is, but he's like if you like horror stuff, it's not really horror, it's just very like, he does very surreal, like undescribable animations. Like you can't describe them because they're just that strange. It's super surreal. Like and he's just an insane animator, and all of his kind of things kind of follow those kind of themes of like greed and political corruption. He just kind of does it in his own little way.
Yeah.
If you like your weird looking stuff, he's your guy. Definitely go give him like a look in on Instagram and stuff.
And the crazy thing as well is that his animations and his artwork, they sell for millions.
Wow. I mean,
so the fact that we can have a video of his animations and not spend a penny.
You know, that was going to be another one of my questions, just because like of how polished it is. Not to say that you guys couldn't like do something like that, but it just looks phenomenal. And I was like, man, you guys like just put out a video and then you have this one as a visualizer. I mean, you guys are fucking killing it. And it just goes to show like you're that's being resourceful, which is very, very important, I'm sure, especially for a band that is just, I mean, you guys aren't just starting up because you've been around for a little while, but still trying to get a little bit more firm footing in the industry. So that just elevates you above a lot, because especially in this day and age with the pandemic, you know, you got to keep up with singles and videos. Like the content is hard to keep pushing. So kudos that all the videos have looked sick so far. So
thanks, dude. Really appreciate that. Big up.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate that as well. And like, we're really lucky as a band of how resourceful we are. There's so much to do in house, and there's so much as well that we're just ready to invest in.
Yeah, I think as a band, we kind of feel each band member really brings their own kind of thing to the table and stuff like that. Because I think, especially right now, bands that are doing really well are bands that are just super resourceful, because we're at a point where, I mean, especially over the last year, like we've been in a point where no one can do fuck all, like no one can do anything. So you really have to pull together and like start figuring out how to get things together, and whether that be tracking vocals, because our vocalist is in Australia, whether it be me tracking vocals through like tracking vocals across the world through using like the internet and streaming and stuff like that, or like, you know, finding like locations to film in, and just kind of being really collaborative and really trying to figure out like what each person truly like can offer and do to make sure that this runs as well as it does. And I think we all do it really, really well. Like Oli does a lot of the kind of background stuff and like ensures that all of the socials are running and that everything is like vibing. He's like businessman, he's got the vision and all that sort of stuff. I contribute a lot with the actual kind of music and sound stuff because I produce all of our music. Me and Oli write collaboratively. Sam also writes, our vocalist also writes and does, obviously writes insane vocals, and is just an insane vocalist. We're so lucky to have him. And then our bassist James is just like, in terms of being able to contribute, like very, very physically, like having locations for us to film music videos and do promo shots in, and having like the resources, and being just he's good with his hands, like he does guitar teching and stuff like that, and has a studio space. So it's just really like we all very much complement each other and kind of fill in the gaps to make sure this runs really smoothly.
Yeah.
And that's almost like kind of an extension of the music. Like I was reading a couple interviews before this interview, and you guys, I guess if we have to put a label on it, like a new metalcore type of sound. And both myself and Todd, my co-host, we're huge like new metal fans. Like that's what we listened to growing up, and it's so cool to see that type of resurgence. But also, like, to piggyback off that, I one interview I was reading with you, Oli, was just how broad of a musical palette you have, and hearing that type of stuff, like there's a lot going on. Like I know one of the things you had mentioned was being a fan of like soundtracks for movies and whatnot. Yeah. And I can like totally hear that. To me is part of like the journey, because that's what a film score does. Like, you know, it invokes a certain emotion that you're supposed to feel. And like it can turn a film totally different if you have like an 80s soundtrack to a horror film. Be like, oh, this is it's kind of campy. But then if you have something like a Hans Zimmer, you're like, oh man, this sounds like hella epic. So I guess what I'm getting at is just like, it's really cool to hear these different influences. And I guess collectively, could you guys maybe speak on that a little bit? Like what is kind of driving the music, the look of the band? Because a lot of it reminds me, like the Quiet Kid video was giving me like a lot of Korn vibes, like just the look of it and everything, and like the lyricism, where Industrial gave me like some Slipknot vibes, like early Slipknot type of deal, and something like that they might be doing. So I'll stop talking. Please take it away.
I think, again, like collectively, we all have such a diverse music taste. Quiet Kid is like a straight up, just it's a heavy song. I think a couple of us were thinking like because a lot of our songs are like a journey and they are quite long form, and just we fancy just taking like having a bit of a change from that and just having a nutty beat down track just cause. And then like we all listen to that kind of thing. Like Oli is a big fan of Bound in Fear, and so is Sam. I'm a big Knock Loose fan. We're all kind of in amongst the kind of underground UK hardcore beatdown thing anyway. So we were taking a lot of influence from that. And then Sam comes back and spits a load of bars at the end of it. And it's just like, it was just like hearing those tracks back for the first time. It was like, oh my, like, it was crazy. We all listened to just so much different stuff. We're all big nu metal fans. James likes his old school, like death metal and stuff.
Okay.
Sam is a huge hip hop head and like a big rap fan. I love like loads of weird electronic music and like just stupid drum and bass and stuff like that. And then Ollie's like listens to everything.
I listen to everything except for indie. I'm not too big a fan of indie.
Okay.
That's where
fair.
I draw. That's where my line's drawn. If it's good, a
I
little
draw
bit of
my line
indie,
there.
I'll vibe with, but like not going to be an influence anytime soon. I don't think. But
I
everything
can't
else,
comment
yeah.
too much because I'll end up driving away like a bunch of my business.
Yeah, I mean that's good that you have like at least like things that you don't want it to kind of impact into the music. And that's a thing with bands as they evolve over time, where it really gives you a snapshot of like where you were at, like maybe mentally, where your tastes lie, and that's really cool because a big one to always bring up is like Bring Me the Horizon isn't Bring Me the Horizon when they first started, like Count Your Blessings era, and they just have a whole different type of fan base. So it's just really cool. Again, like Journey, we always circle back to that, like just the snapshot of where everyone's head's at, and
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
that's one thing I really like about Bring Me is that they can just do what the hell they want.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of the stuff I don't vibe with as much as other stuff, but I respect that. Like, they as a band be like, we're in this musical mood, we're just gonna do it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's where I want Sunfall to be, is like we can just do what we want when we want because we're feeling it.
I'd agree.
And it seems like you guys are already, at least in this juncture of your musical career, because again, not to sound like a broken record, but those things that you are doing are quite different, especially with how big of a resurgence this like the new metalcore is, and a lot of them, as much as I love it, like you kind of tend to get a similar sound or similar just like little nuances and stuff like that, where you're just like, that is exactly what this other band's doing. It's not bad, it's just not as original, I guess. So it's really cool because you guys, I think the biggest thing that appeals to me is the new metal with like the beatdown, like you're getting like some really stupid heavy parts, but then having these really creepy atmospheric, like I love the intro for Industrial. Like it just kind of, especially watching the video, It just gave me like these chills. I'm like, man, this is. It made me think of like what Slipknot would do with like Tattered and Torn or like Scissors or something like that, where it's just like these really creepy atmospheric things, and I'm always for it.
That's such a huge compliment. We're all like huge Slipknot fans, so like, damn.
Yeah, and it's just like, I think as well, the new metal stuff, like for all of us, even down to the look, it's just nostalgia of like better times, like going back to our childhood where it was just fun and carefree.
Yeah.
And it's just fun to be able to just step back into that world and just be a part of it in 2021, you know, and living that history in the present day, you know, and like, that's something I do with my writing now, like demoing is big part thing of new metal is sampling.
Right.
You know, so be it if they're just straight samples that someone's made or lifting it from something else. I know Ryan done that as well. You know,
yeah, we're both really big into like on a production side. I really like taking things and then just fucking with them so that it like is something completely different. And like the start of industrial has, because it's like super breakbeaty. I chopped up the Amen break, which is a really famous like drum break that's been used in like countless songs, just to really like add that kind of more authentic kind of vibe of like, instead of just programming a drum loop using like electronic samples, I used a drum break that was used a ton in the 90s to give it more of that kind of 90s feel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that. And it also as well, like Craig Jones from Slipknot, he's such an unsung hero on that band.
Such an unsung hero.
Really pay attention to like the work he's done, especially on the early Slipknot stuff. So much of that character has come from a lot of his sampling. Then you've got Sid on turntables as well, you know. Yeah.
It's crazy. We just love it. We love just adding all of those kind of flavors into the music because it's what we grew up on. And it's like the stuff that we think is the dopest thing about all of those bands is like, oh, Korn has this really weird guitar thing. And then it goes, bam, 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 and then that's like, oh, that's hard as fuck. Let's steal that. And then Slipknot is like, oh, they're using this sample of this woman screaming and then mixing it in with and this thing and then running it through a guitar amp. Like, let's also do that because it sounds insane. And no one else is like, people are doing it, but I think, I don't know, it just feels like people could go a bit further with it. Yeah, we're also massive Mick Gordon fans as well. So it's all about just like really trying to get into that kind of
headspace.
Yeah, just trying to go as far as we can whilst, you know, keeping all the hardcore beatdown kids happy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's one thing I'm like hyper aware of as well, is that like when it comes to like borrowing things from other music or being influenced by new metal and this and that, bands have got to be so careful, is that whether they do something musically because they want to be Slipknot or want to be Korn,
right,
or they're doing it because it's literally just an influence on their character. Because if you're wanting to be those bands, then you start really regurgitating that sound. Mm-hmm. And that's where I feel like a lot of bands fall into a pit of not being as original as they can be.
Right.
I think the best kind of influences come subconsciously because, like, if I, you know, to go back to industrial has like a very long, very electronic intro, and that could be like, oh, I forget what the song was now. I had a song in my head and now I've completely forgotten it, but it was like, it was, you know, you could relate it being as influenced by that. Or actually, I had a better idea. Going back to Quiet Kid. So Quiet Kid, the intro is like the really fuzzy guitar and then it all comes in. Like, to me, that sounds like Coming Undone. No, not Coming Undone. Oh, what's the song by Korn that goes down, 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 bound, here to stay, right? To me, it's just it's like our kind of version of the here to stay intro, if I like really think about it. But when I was writing it and like when we were putting the track together, like that never popped into my mind.
Yeah.
I think that you kind of take on those influences subconsciously, and that's when you really like, I think that's how those come through the best. I think if you write something being like, I'm going to write it, it's going to sound like this. You end up writing something, it sounds like that. And you go, wow, I really ripped off that band.
Yeah. And I think it helps as well to have other songwriters in the band. Because for example, if someone does write something with a very specific influence, if they send it to someone else to work on it as well, completely unaware of their influence,
they're
going to provide their own spin on it, which changes that formula.
For sure.
Yeah, I think I remember reading that the EP that you guys have out, Serenity, you wrote all of it, Oli? Is that correct?
Yeah, because originally the band was just going to be like a solo online project of mine.
Okay.
By that point, I'd not long left Bound in Fear, so I was just like, I'm kind of like past interacting with other people. I just want to do my own thing. And at that time and space, like, it was a challenge for me to start off with, because the tuning that we play in is not a tuning that I grew up learning in. It's not a drop tuning or a standard tuning. It's like some weird octave thing going on. So bottom two strings are tuned to F sharp, or sometimes G sharp and F sharp.
It's the Architects tunings.
Yeah, it's the Architects tuning. And I was a big fan of that band, and the only music I could play in that tuning was from that band. Then I tried to write something in that tuning, and I couldn't. So I challenged myself. It's like, okay, write an EP in this tuning, because I couldn't.
Okay.
That's how our original music came about.
I forget that I actually had to learn how to like, I forget that, but I remember when I first sat down and had to like write for Sunfall, like that's how Harakiri came about. I was like, oh, this is some weird ass tuning I've never ever used before. All of the usual shapes that I used don't work anymore. And I remember being like, shit, I have to now write for this.
Yeah, and it's just like, and I think that also helps us as well when it comes to trying to get a unique taste on, like, take on music. So if you're bringing in Korn influences and Slipknot influences, they didn't write in these tunings really. There was like one Slipknot song in an F sharp tuning.
Yeah.
Apart from that, if you're gonna write in a style of Slipknot and Korn in a tuning that they didn't use, automatically you're gonna get different results.
Yeah.
And going back to the original EP anyway, you know, it's got like a post-metalcore sound, and I brought in like the underground scene influences in it, you know, but I'm really happy with how that turned out, and that it has its own character, because it's me literally learning a new language on a guitar because of the tuning. And that's what my first words were in that language.
I guess kind of just, again, circling back to the new metal vibe that you guys are at now, it's cool to hear that backstory for Serenity and like really challenging yourself to write like that, because to me the biggest drawing factor for new metal is it just combines literally everything. Like, you have the hip hop elements, you have the metal elements, you have like industrial. It's just like kind of like a melting pot of all these different genres, and it's just ripe for experimentation. So again, like what you guys were saying, a lot of bands like can be put under that new metal umbrella, but they're not pushing themselves to be like as experimental as like they potentially could be. Yeah. And I think that's where you guys really, really shine, is because you are taking that. And the first time I heard like any of these, I'm like, I honestly don't know like where it's going. Like the breakdown in Quiet Kid with the weird like ambient breaks in the breakdown, I was like, dude, this is hard as fuck. Like, I haven't really heard anything like this in a long time. And just again, like the imagery, and going back to, now I'm just getting all over the place, but like it is cool, and to have like that nostalgic feeling, especially being in COVID, because we're not able to have as much interaction with one another. I mean, we're slowly getting there, but we're not out of the water at all. So like it's kind of cool to have that like sense of security in a way, not for like what you're writing, but a familiar sound. Be like, cool, this makes me think of, like you said, like a simpler time, and it's just like, as complex as the music is, it's like easily palatable, because like I'll listen to you guys like any day of the week, and like I can sit there and intently listen to it, but I can also have it as background noise and like tune in every once in a while. I'll be like, oh, like I forgot this part was coming up. But it's just really cool to be able to have like a lot of those different elements going on, and you guys are doing it right. That's really what I'm getting at.
Yeah, thanks, man. The point that you touched on then, where it was like it kind of verges on that. There's a lot to it, but like it is still quite palatable. I mean, I think that is another kind of big clash of kind of influences in the band. I'm a massive like tech metal fan and mathcore fan, so I like all of this really sporadic, crazy like ADHD music where it can do whatever, and that is like a massive influence on me. And whereas I really like the fact that in our music we kind of have like this we've kind of hit this point where it is proggy and has techie moments, but isn't so much so that it is just kind of like, oh, here's an atonal riff, oh, there's another atonal riff, like, which is happening a lot right now. Like in the scene, there's just loads of bands where it's kind of like it's riff soupy, whereas like I think we really focus on having songs sound like really cohesive, but then also kind of push the boundaries of what we can play and also write as well. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's cool having as well Ryan's very different like musical influences to me, him being very techie, you know, and adding those elements in, because then it just expands my vocabulary as a guitarist, learning that stuff.
Harakiri.
Yeah, you know, there's in the future, there's like a song coming as well where Ryan's just like, Oli, I'm going to make you a better guitarist now. Get ready. You have to learn some stuff that you definitely would never have played by yourself.
I do it to myself with the drum parts. There are some industrial is horrendous to play on the drums. And like, I wrote it all just because I was like, I'm not going to like, I just got you. If I'm writing it, I've got to play it. So like, I'm going to have to learn this. So I may as well write it and it be not like, you know, unachievable. Like I'm not putting 250 BPM blasts in there because it's just like, I'm never going to do it. But it's like stuff that is like slightly outside where I'm comfortable playing, so that I actually have to sit and like work on it. And like, I think challenging yourself with your music is just, I think it's very natural. And I find that all of the people that I like the songwriting of are always constantly challenging themselves with what they can play and how they write and stuff.
Yeah. And one thing I like as well is like, especially for this, because we've got a schedule of all these songs we're releasing, and the last one on the schedule is like very leaning into Ryan's influences. And you'll see as time goes along as well, each single coming out have a very different flavor to each other. It's also as well having so many different influences. When it comes to playing live shows again, I'm hoping we can provide a very dynamic live set. You aren't going to be listening to the same sound for the whole set.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a set that's very dynamic.
And that is really important because like for instance, I just saw Black Dahlia Murder last week with my brother, and I love Black Dahlia Murder. I'm a huge fan, but listening to a whole set, like everything kind of sounds the same. Like you know exactly what you're getting from Black Dahlia Murder. They have the formula and it works, and I love it. But I love being able to like walk away and like go to the merch table and then come back to like you guys playing and be like, wait, this is the same band? Like this is something that sounds completely different, and that's super cool to me, because that goes to like what my musical influences are. Like as a fan, I don't want to just hear the same thing. So having that type of dynamic set is going to be super killer.
Yeah, you know, and ultimately as well, like I want Sunfall for it to be a band for people who are just a fan of music.
Hell
Not
yeah.
necessarily a deathcore fan or a metalcore fan, new metal fan. It's just people who are fans of music on a broader scale, and they can come to us knowing that they like a wider range of stuff, and that they can get that from us.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, even just based off the 3 singles that you've put out, like since the EP, they're all very different and they're all very dynamic, which is so cool. And again, not to sound like a broken record, but the first one I had listened to was Harakiri, and then jamming both Quiet Kid and Industrial like right before the recording. I'm like, this is the same band. Like, this is great. This is exactly like the type of shit that I want to listen to. And then I will take the time to listen to it, because in this day and age, there's so many bands. There's so many like good bands too. It's like, you know, how do you really like step it up so that like you're gonna be the one that people listen to over a band like in a similar genre. And I think that you guys are achieving that. I'm not trying to like be a suck up or anything, but it is like, it's just so cool, because taking the time to really listen to it beforehand, I was like, man, these are great. Like when it was sent over, shout out James Ilsley, he's always sending over great bands, but he's like, yeah, this is new metalcore. I'm like, we don't even have to listen to you, like sign us up. Like, I want to talk to these guys. They're my kind of people. So one thing I wanted to touch upon, and then I just have like a couple of closing remarks, but speaking on Harakiri, like in the video itself, I'm always trying to go back to the video portion of it, because that's what I do. I'm in the film industry and I make movies. Like that's what I love in addition to metal. So blending the two is always nice. But noticing the EP artwork for Serenity, a lot of that same imagery was in the video for Harakiri, but that is not from the EP. So that's like kind of a cool continuation. And I guess my question is like, I mean, of course it's intentional, because like you guys did that, like you made the creative decision to do that, but like going into these singles, like, is that going to be like a continuing theme to like have certain things like that, or?
It's because I see that was very done on purpose. Because behind Serenity, there's like a story, like that was a moment in time for the band and what we were going through. Especially for our vocalist Sam, it's a very pivotal story for him in that.
Okay.
And in him, because after Serenity, he left the band.
Oh, okay.
He left the country.
Yeah, because he left the country.
He didn't just leave the band. He pissed off.
Yeah, and and there's a whole story, you know, that he went through leaving the band, the journey he went on to deciding to come back to the UK to rejoin the band again and everything. So Serenity is very symbolic of that story and what we went through as well on our end of the spectrum on that story. So, you know, me and Sam have talked about in the future in terms of like music videos. You know, there's a couple of demos he has in mind he wants to write about in relation to that story.
Okay.
So when we come to those songs, if we do, and if there's a music video for them, you probably see Serenity references coming up in them again.
Awesome.
I think originally, like, we had a plan where, like, our release after Harakiri, 'cause we just put Harakiri out to kind of be like, guys, we're still making music, yeah? Like, we're still here. Like, it was just a thing to put out. And it was also to kind of introduce, like, an expanded sound off of the EP. Like our plan was to release like an actual body of work, and it was going to kind of conceptually kind of come after Serenity and songwriting wise kind of deal with themes of like if Serenity isn't quite what you thought it would be post dealing with that and stuff like that. Whereas what our plan has become now is we are just trying to show everyone the breadth of what we are writing currently, and just to be like, this is like, boom, this is our beatdown song, boom, this is our like industrially proggy thing, boom, here's like something that sounds like our old shit, boom, here's something that is like super techy and weird, and we're really just trying to be like, this is what this is going to sound like. And I think in the future, like if we do end up producing a body of work together, I think it's still very much on the cards that we'll have like a conception for it that would be, you know, it would move on from the idea of Serenity and the kind of like story of it.
Okay, that sounds fucking great to me. Anytime there's like a connectivity throughout a body of work is just super fascinating, and that's the kind of stuff that again like just keeps me as a fan, not only like musically but like what you guys are trying to portray with the lyricism or like the video work or whatnot. And this might be a far stretch, so I'm not trying to go super into it, but I thought it was interesting that the first single, Harakiri, is named what it is, coming off of Serenity, just being kind of like a ritualistic suicide. And is there any like particular reason for that name to be like, this is kind of like the death of what we were, and now we're kind of like coming back in a different light?
I mean, that wasn't a conscious thought process in that regard. It's cool that you brought it up, because it's cool to hear that perspective on things. It was mainly just referencing the lyrical themes of the song, which is about, you know, because the thought of committing suicide over something like honor, I understand it, but at the same time, it's also quite sad.
Yeah.
That you're ending your life over something like that. And it's just like a metaphor for just life in general that a lot of people go through. It's like we do things we know is like doing a disservice to ourselves, but we willingly do it.
Right.
For whatever reasons they may be. You know, it's just like, you know, that we're capable of doing better. We see what's wrong with ourselves or with things that we do, but we just don't. We're doing that kind of like, I don't know, killing of our true selves in that. But I totally see your references as well in terms of like...
Such an interesting point of view. I like that. Yeah. We're stealing it.
Please do. This is something else that we talk about a lot on the show, is just, you know, when does art transcend the artist, and getting different perspectives? Because I love to hear the behind the scenes, the BTS, if you will, of like what goes in, you know, like what's intentional, what is coming up like subconsciously. Because like you said, it's really cool to do your thing, whether it's writing the lyrics, writing the music, doing the video, and then like you kind of listen back to it or watch it again. You're like, oh yeah, I do see like there is that influence going on within the music, instead of having that direct result. Like I remember totally like side note here, but like Todd and I, we tried to form a band like so many times, and like having the intention, like we're going to sound like Parkway Drive, and then everything sounds like Parkway Drive. And they were like, well, this isn't going to go anywhere. And it didn't, like for, you know, whatever reason, but it is, it's cool when you have these types of little like moments where you just look and you're like, yeah, if this wasn't exactly what I was going for, like this is a cool thing that has come out of it.
Yeah. And like as well, like when I approach writing lyrics anyway, I want to write things in a way that's open, like an open canvas for people to apply their own experiences and find their own meaning in, you know. And sometimes when I write lyrics, I don't even find out what I've written about until after the fact. Like with our track Inside of Serenity, I wrote the lyrics for that. It's not until way after the fact I realized what I wrote about, because I just wrote what came into my head. And now I look back in context of everything, I was like, oh my God, I completely wrote about, you know, that's my mental health state and what I was feeling at the time without even realizing, you know. And when you bring up your view on things as well, I may reflect on harakiri, be like, yeah, subconsciously, that's where I've been coming from as well.
Mm.
You know, there's a lot to learn from other people and the perspective on things about yourself.
For sure.
I think Sam's always quite, sorry, I completely interrupted you there. Just like to add a little like side note to that, it's just Sam always seems quite interested because Sam's lyrics are either super literal or like they are deeply personal to him. I think he walks a really good line between having very visceral, very literal sounding lyrics that actually have like a very deep, like a lot of a deeper meaning to it. And he kind of is really good at mixing those kind of influences in and just kind of interweaving it all. And it's always very interesting to hear Sam's response, because I'm always, when he sends me the lyrics for when we're tracking vocals, I'm like, oh, it's about this. And he goes, nah, I think there's one lyric in one of the songs where I was like, oh, is this about this really horrible event that happened in history? And he's like, nah, it's just where my nan lives. And like, if I look out the window, it's a really nice view. Like, it's like stuff like that where like it's always very interesting to like, to see his perspective on something. And I think he's always very interested in when we have something to say about his lyrics or when we, you know, question him about his lyrics, because he never explicitly is like, this is about this and this is about this. It's always very much like, it could be about this. There's this line that references this. I know this about Sam. Like, it could be about this, but also it's probably just about, I don't know, like stabbing someone in the eye with a pencil. Do you know what I mean?
And that kind of goes to like how nu metal, like the lyricism for a lot of bands is like, it's so emotional, whether it's like your own emotion or just like kind of being perceptive of like what's going on. Like it's all emotionally driven. And again, like for me, that was always because growing up, it was like nu metal and like emo music. Like I listened to Korn and then My Chemical Romance, like two very like emotionally driven bands, but just total opposite ends of the spectrum musically. So it is really cool to again, like get the different interpretations and feeling something and evoking emotions, which you guys do. Again, like having these journeys throughout the music is at least I think it's very important, because that's half the fun of why I like to listen to music. And like I'll go to shows and start like crying, not like sobbing, but like it'll be like such an evoked emotion. Like you bring up Architects. The only time I saw Architects, I started tearing up because that band like means a lot to me, and like where I was like listening to stuff like Holy Hell, and like where my mental state is like, man, this is all coming back to me and now I can't stop crying and this is so weird but so cool.
I've had that moment with Tesseract. Me and James have both equally shared sad Tesseract moments where like we've like different songs, but like we both like had the same reaction to like different parts of their sets, and like during Slipknot and stuff like that. And I think Sam's probably also cried at a show, because just like it sometimes hearing a song and being in that specific kind of mindset, and it's like the adrenaline's going and you're like the crowd around you, and it's just such a big, like, it's just, there's a lot of energy in the air, to sound super hipster and weird, but like there's just so much energy and like so much emotion that it kind of just, even if you're not sad about something, it just comes out and like you just let it out, and it's really cathartic, I've always found.
Yeah, for real. And like even with Architects, like I've seen them loads of times now, but after Tom passed away, when it comes to the time in the set where there's a song that Tom wrote about having cancer and come to terms with his own mortality, like that's just heavy stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and especially for our bass player James, because he has an identical twin brother as well.
Okay.
So for him, and because James also has had some like a near-death experience, so for him as well, I remember him saying to me that that kind of stuff really hits him. Yeah, you know, it's cool though that, like, you know, with Ryan with Tesseract, you know, myself with Architects, and James with his band, Sam with his bands, that like people can just get together in a big room and just cry.
I really want to have like a moment. I would love to like, you know, reach out into like a crowd of people and like have our music reach into people in that kind of way, in like whatever emotion. Because like I personally, I don't listen to Slipknot, I don't listen to Iowa and be like, this makes me feel sad, or like I feel this certain way about it. That gives you this. I think if you listen to Iowa or like Scissors or like some old school Slipknot, you're like listening to it and you're like, I feel like I'm fucking deranged. I feel really disturbed by this. And it's just such a visceral, like raw reaction. You get like these goosebumps because you're just creeped out by Corey screaming his like lungs out about whatever. And I would love to just even have like an ounce of being able to do that for people with our music.
Yeah. Well, we've had a close experience with that with our song Snake. Because we ended up getting an email one day from the mother of a fan of the band who saw us when we opened the Monuments. And she was saying, like, your set was the first time I've seen him smile in a very long time.
Wow.
After having like a very hard battle with depression and everything. But I imagine he's still in it now. You know,
we should DM him. We should message him. Let's show him some new shit. Let's send him some free shit.
A while ago, I sent him some snippets of new stuff, but I don't think he ever saw it. You know, but myself having, you know, very severe battles with depression and everything, knowing like what it means to literally smile. And apparently that's the first time he, you know, left the house in a very long time as well.
Wow.
Was to go.
Very powerful.
You know, but Sam, before he played Snake, Sam gave a little talk about mental health and stuff like that, which apparently was the point. Things start to really resonate. Knowing that it has impacted someone that way, you know, that's a whole different feeling. Like, yeah, it's so profound. You know, like Ryan said, if we can just go on for music to help people like that, you know, even the fact, like you're saying as well, it just gives you that feeling of safety and a nostalgic sound. I'm just happy that we can do that for you and whoever else is getting that from the sound.
I'm happy with any kind of emotion. I like, I think good emotions are always like, I think the most powerful, whatever they are. But I think like I'm always like very content and very happy. Like I'm like, if we've had a couple of like reaction channels like react to our stuff, and like the best feeling in the world, aside from like playing a dope show, is like when you see someone react to your music and they're like pulling a face or like beating up a chair or just like smacking their desk or just like all that, any kind of emotion, anytime anyone like reacts to a certain way, like to the music, that's not just, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, oh, it's all right. Like if someone's like really like fucking with it, like that's always just, I think that is the best. It's the best feeling ever. Like, and every time a single comes out, I'm always like scouring Twitch streams and like YouTube channels being like, I want to see people react to our music now.
I mean, keep doing what you're doing, guys, because you're doing it very, very fucking well. And I think what you're talking about and trying to get these like evoked emotions and like having that type of connection, you already have it, but it's just, I mean, I'm sure it's really tough because like with the lockdown and everything, I was looking on your Instagram page, like you have played shows, but have you been able to play any of this new stuff?
We had a very fun experience playing there.
Don't even bring it up. Oh my God.
It's got to entertain people. It's got to entertain people. Let's just do it. We very last minute, helped out a local promoter with a charity show It was like he really needed another band to play.
Oh, there is so much more to this.
Yeah,
my gosh, because
it
was short. It was short term, anyways. But like context for at least myself, because I'm a massive narcissist.
Kind of short term.
Literally, like I had finished work. I don't live near where these guys live in the UK. I live, I live like 3 hours away. But I was booked in to basically do sound for this charity show for ages, and it was all going to be good. It was all calm. Like I knew all the bands on the bill. One of the bands last minute, like dropped out. The school year finished out, which meant I finished work. I traveled that night. So like the show was on the Monday, I finished work on the Friday, traveled that night to my friends. Saturday, I was at like a friend's birthday party thing that had also been planned for months. The next day after that, I still hadn't gone back to Aldershot, like in Surrey where the show happened. And then we get like a thing Sunday night being like, yeah, we're playing a show now. And then I was like, oh, I'm also doing sound for this show. Very like, this is sick. And then I stay the night wherever we're staying on the Sunday, wake up Monday, like have to shoot back to where the show is, set my computer up, make backing tracks for all of the old songs and the new song that we decided to play. And it was just, horrendous.
On the day, so our bass player James was so ill.
Oh, yeah, he got food poisoning.
So like
the night before.
Literally the morning of the show, like we're trying to get our files together for the backing track, but we're also having to try find the bass tracks to put them onto the backing track. It got to a point I was ready to just quickly record bass on the guitar and pitch it down an octave. Then I was like, oh no, maybe I can program the bass.
And then I went, no, I can't. Let's not do that. Oh my gosh. Right. And so we get to the show. I'm borrowing my friend's like backline, basically, because I have nothing. I had loads of recording gear with me because I had recording sessions, but I didn't have any like drum gear or anything. So I'm borrowing my friend's thing. We set up, I'm doing sound. The venue's completely changed from when I did sound there like a couple of years ago. So I'm already stressing about the show, period. It goes off really well. The first couple of bands go off really well. And then it's our turn. And then like we get on stage. Okay, we did it instrumental as well. No vocalist. So then we like get on stage and we're like setting stuff up and the backing track's getting set up. And then we're like, okay, calm, we're good to go. We sound check, and then the sound guy's like, the clicks playing out the front. And I was like, what? So then I look at the mixer, sort that out in our backing tracks, so I know when to come in and count people in, because when the adrenaline's going, you just don't know what's going on.
Right.
We have like this stock Apple voice that goes, intro, 2, 3, 4, and then like we play whatever. Or like I count in the guys. I had panned everything correctly apart from that. So anytime any of our songs came in, because we have our backing tracks pretty loud as well, because there's just so much on them compared to like the show mix. It's just every time anything happened. So it'd be like the end of Deathbreaker, which is a huge breakdown. We've got this big speech from Star Wars, and then all of a sudden it's going breakdown, 2, 3, 4. It's just like a mess. And then like this, like it's just so messy. My cymbals are falling off the stage because I've had no time to set them up. My China falls off the drum riser, trashes the whole backing track system. And like that's it, gone. And like I had to do like the final 2 songs without click whilst our backing track was going on. So any clips we've got, I got GoPro footage of the whole night, and we've just got like, we finished playing the last song, and then there's like a bunch of vocal, and then a sub drop, and then the set finishes.
Yeah, because I remember we finished playing Quiet Kid, but we were like ahead of the backing track, so it's just silence, and it's just Sam rapping.
Yeah, it's like with a baseball hat on hand. It's just like, it was so bad.
The song wasn't out at the time as well, so I'm looking into the audience, and they're like vibing like it's part of the song, and it's like, oh, he's rapping. And I'm like,
Yeah,
like,
people are
oh
like,
my god.
people are like, oh shit, there's bars in this song now.
Oh, so it sounds like it's been a good experience with some of the new material then.
I'm low-key dreading playing some of these songs live because like with Serenity, I just learned the parts, but these songs are way more hard, like difficult to play than anything off of Serenity. And I'm just like, oh, if I just like, am I in over my head a little bit? It's all fine. It'll be fine. But like, I'm hoping these songs go off.
They will go off live for sure. Like, I'm sure of that. For me, it's just like knowing that our backing track system isn't going to screw us over. Because like, even when we played with Monuments, Ryan wasn't in the band at the time. But like, our backing track system had done so well for so many shows. Consistently. Then we're opening for bloody Monuments, right?
Right.
Then out of nowhere, all that click and stuff is coming out of PA. We got through like 2 songs, absolutely fine. But for some reason, the whole system, I'm like, I'm going to screw you over now. You know, then after Ryan joined the band, we had our own lighting rig. And I started having issues with my laptop. So sometimes click would drop out for Ryan.
Oh my god.
It's always in like the moments when you need it. It's never like, it's always in like Deathbreaker right at the end. It will just drop out and I will be like, oh, sick. Or it'll be like during Snake where like there is insane tempo drops where you have to be tight to it. And then there's just no click. I'm like, I think I'm going at the correct speed. Oh my fucking god.
Yeah, if we can get a backing track system just like solid and reliable, then I will stress a lot less about shows. Because then it's just about us as musicians, and that we have control over. Technology, not so much.
That's a fair point. I feel a lot better about playing these shows now, actually. Way less imposter syndrome.
Yeah, technology, blessing and a curse. For sure. When it works, it works. When it doesn't, you're just like the most inopportune times.
Exactly. And part of me wishes as well, like, we could just get a sampler in the band who can just play our backing tracks so we don't have to worry about a computer.
That's an extra mouth to feed.
Exactly.
We don't have the budget yet.
Exactly. Computers are great for that. Our computer's like the fourth member of the band.
Yeah, for sure.
His name is Derek.
Oh, nice.
I thought his name was Mac.
His name is Unreliable.
So many. That's probably why it's not working. There's so many different identities that the computer has. Like, I don't know who I am right now.
Exactly.
Like, you want me to be Mac? You want me to be Derek? I'm just gonna be Unreliable at this fucking point.
Exactly. Some days he's like, I'm the best ever. Other days like, I'm such a failure. No one loves me. I can't do this. I have stage fright.
Yeah, you know you're fucking up when the backing track has stage fright.
Well, I hope that the next time you guys get the opportunity to play, that everyone's firing on all cylinders, including Derek Mac, and he's not unreliable that day.
Probably, most likely though, he's gonna get fired, and we'll get a new Derek or a new Mac in.
Oh yeah.
Just let him down easy. You know, he's done his job, served the band well, but
in all fairness, he's done a good. He's done. Yeah. You know what? In all fairness, he's done some bits.
Yeah. Like, let me get him right now. Like, just so everyone in the stream, he's been for a lot. Here's Derek.
Jesus, how far is this joke going? This is our bit.
Where is this? Where's this huge dent? See that huge dent right there?
Oh, yeah.
He's been for a lot. I blame James for that. He put it on the side of the stage one day. I told him not to put it there. It's going to fall off. Fell off. Inside the motherboard, right, is a sheet of cardboard.
Yeah.
Because without that sheet of cardboard, there's like a small crack in the motherboard that when it flexes slightly, screws the whole laptop. You know,
no, dude.
Dies.
Yeah, I feel that for sure. So hopefully, you know, Derek, thank you for what you've done friend, but
Salute you, Derek.
salute you.
Yeah.
It's time to
Big up, brother.
upgrade.
Exactly.
Well, guys, it has been an absolute pleasure getting to chat, and again, thank you so much, and especially you, Oli. I mean, you're the illest, literally, and I really appreciate it, man. And as I'm not docking you, Ryan, but like, fuck you for being in good health, man.
Yeah.
Oh, very fucking dare you.
Yeah. The last question I kind of have for you guys is, how can everyone stay up to date with what's coming in the future, and whenever you guys get to play shows or release any new singles, because you guys have mentioned that there's a couple more coming out. Plug away, you know, how can we do that?
Facebook and Instagram mainly, because
just watch the socials.
I suck at Twitter.
Yeah, it's the same.
I'm gonna try be up to speed on that, but I suck at Twitter.
I hate Twitter. It's so bad.
Yeah,
It's a cesspool, man.
in terms of the music, you want to go on there writing about Twitter? You okay? Okay. Yeah,
I'm not gonna. Let's not get into it.
In terms of the new music, there's a lot coming. I think there's 2 tracks dropping next month.
Awesome.
One is a bit of a curveball, which you'll really enjoy.
Oh,
You'll know it when it's there. You know when
Okay,
it's there. You
okay.
know exactly what it's about.
okay.
And yeah, there's new music coming after that. Like, there's gonna be a lot of new music.
Yeah, we're kind of just hustling.
Very, like, this is the hardest we've worked as a band ever. Like,
That's awesome.
So tell me about it.
especially Ryan, because he handles all the mixing and stuff. He's like having just like the moment we finish one song, it's like deadline for the next one coming up.
Gotta get it done.
Yeah.
God, can we
Yeah.
just push the deadline back a little bit? Okay, 2 days. Okay, can do that. Gets to 2 days later, and it's like, can we just push it back like an extra 2 days?
3 more minutes.
Give me more time.
Well, I mean, the 2 extra days for whatever you need it for, everything's been sounding great. You guys are phenomenal musicians. Thank you again. I can't
Thanks,
wait
dude.
to hear the new stuff, even though I'm still high off of Industrial, man. I'm probably gonna listen to it after this conversation.
Fuck yeah.
Cheers, bro.
And yeah, again, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Beautiful.
Cheers from empty glass.
Empty Arizona.